I want to also bring in Texas-based trial attorney Stephanie Sherman. She was the first attorney to file a federal lawsuit on behalf of the Uvalde survivors and their families. That lawsuit alleges the school district, police, and the gun makers failed to protect those children and those teachers. Ms. Sherman, thanks for being with us tonight. This is Uvalde by the numbers. 19 children, 2 teachers dead, 400 officers, 77 minutes, more than an hour of nothing while some of those children died. But this is the number that your clients point to. No one has been charged. Is this a chargeable offense in your opinion?
Well, I think if there's another number we need to add to this is there's been only 5 terminations out of this whole ordeal, and there's 400 officers that were there. And so is it a chargeable offense? I am a civil trial lawyer and not a criminal lawyer, but I do know a bit about the criminal laws in Texas. And we do have criminally negligent manslaughter, which is an option, and injury to a child, among other things, because in this situation, you have law enforcement that have a duty and obligation to execute their training. And knowing children were there, hurt, injured, and there was an active shooter, they dropped the ball and deliberately delayed and waited. That is criminal negligence.
I'm glad you brought up the fact that only 5 people have been fired, because Uvalde is a small town. And a lot of the law enforcement officers who live there know families who lost their children that day. I want you to listen to what one father had to say about one of the officers who was mentioned in the report. Take a listen.
One of the officers is a county commissioner. All he tells us is, wait till the report's out, wait till the report's out. When we've seen that he just stood there, he got the phone call from the little, from the dispatch, from the little girl that was saying that, well, I'm still alive, there's a shooter in here. And he did absolutely nothing with it. They didn't do what was right that day. They haven't done what's right since.
That same father said that when he goes to the grocery store, he runs into the officers who were there on that day, and there is that awkward exchange between them. Does it surprise you that this officer thought that he would some way be vindicated by this report?
I don't see how he could possibly think that. There has been no other more clear demonstration of epic failures. And I feel for this parent, because it's true. They do have to navigate the community and see people that did not protect their children. And there is supposed to be a public trust between law enforcement and the community, between the community and the school. And all of those things have been breached. And for this officer to continue to be on the payroll in the community, to continue to be employed, when these families have lost their children, when these families are struggling with children that are survivors with PTSD and other injuries, and all of these other officers are still walking around. And they accepted the risk when they took this job of getting hurt, and they didn't want to take that risk.
I'm curious, have you heard from Texas Governor Greg Abbott?
No.
Some parents are hoping that this report opens eyes and affects change. I want you to listen to Kimberly Rubio. She spoke today as well.
I hope that the failures end today, and the local officials do what wasn't done that day, do right by the victims and survivors of Robb Elementary, terminations, criminal prosecutions. And our state and federal government enact sensible gun laws.
It wasn't enough after Columbine, not enough after Sandy Hook. Will this report and what happened to the children of Robb Elementary, in your opinion, be enough?
I certainly hope so, because this is a situation in Texas where you can't sue the police. You can't hold them liable because there's immunity. And then same with the school district, there's immunity. So there's all of these obstacles at place. We're having to file a civil rights case, which has a high burden. So there's not only roadblocks in the civil justice system, but also in the criminal justice system, because it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And whether the DA hands down indictments, that's up to her. And so what's left as far as accountability? Terminations, we've only seen 5. Sensible gun laws, well, that hasn't happened in the 20 months that the shooting took place. It hasn't happened. And so I feel for this parent. It is disturbing. And I have a child that's 12 years old that goes to Texas schools. I understand her fear, and things have got to change.
Ms.
And I
Sherman,
think that this case is right there.
you know the official police saying they are there to serve and protect. Did the police in Uvalde, Texas, and the members of the Border Patrol and the others who responded, did they serve or did they protect?
Well, the Border Patrol, I have to put them to the side because they are the ones that ultimately did kill the shooter. They came in and did business. The other ones took an oath to serve and protect. They came onto the scene within 3 minutes of the shooter, who walked into the school completely unabated. They are trained to neutralize, distract, or kill an active shooter. They must prioritize the children's lives over their own. They took on that responsibility, and the parents and the community of Uvalde trusted them to do that, to protect their children. They did not protect their children. They prioritized their own life over the children. And it's interesting that some of the videos from the earlier documentary, the children were quiet, they were silent, they were following their training that they had learned at school. And the officers just stood outside the hallway for 77 minutes and deliberately allowed this to continue and for people to get hurt and even die.
I mentioned as I introduced you that you have filed a lawsuit. How concerned are you that in cases like this so many times, especially when you're dealing with small towns, the route that they choose is not to basically settle these cases, but to declare bankruptcy?
Well, you know, that certainly is an option for the gun maker and the gun seller. They can try to avoid liability. But if you look at the profit margins of the gun maker and the gun sellers, they make a lot of money, millions. So I don't see that as a concern here. And then the other instance, you have government entities that can't do that. So that's not so much a concern. The bigger concern is the high burden of proof that we have in Texas going after the government entities like law enforcement and the school, because we have to do a civil rights case because they have immunity. So that is a high burden. And then with regard to the gun maker and the gun seller, we have another obstacle, and that is PLACA. It is the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act that gives them immunity. So there are so many obstacles and roadblocks to justice here that it's a very challenging and difficult case, and that's why there have not been many that have been filed.
I'm curious, I've only got 10 seconds left, but have you heard from the DA, Christina Mitchell?
We have not. We have not.
Trial attorney Stephanie Sherman. Ms. Sherman, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much.